Welcome back to the Rockfish Podcast. My name is Maddie, and today we are going to talk about rockfish. First, we're going to have Kaden talk about the life history of rockfish.
Thank you, Maddie. According to personal conversation with Andrew Ripel of UC Davis, rockfish are found in the Sebastes genus with 109 recognized extant species. They are characterized by their large head and pectoral fins, rounded tail, and subordinal stay. It is incredibly difficult to site-identify species due to similar colorations and other characteristics. Rockfish also have numerous venomous spines on their body that are intended to protect them from predators. Their habitat range encompasses various shorelines around the globe, but the highest diversity exists in the Pacific Ocean, with Santa Barbara being the diversity epicenter. They live in the intertidal zone to depths of 3,000 feet and are typically found inhabiting benthic substrates such as rock outcroppings. According to the Monterey Bay Aquarium's website, adult rockfish are also homebodies, and if travel is necessary, they do not roam far from their base. Additionally, they can live for more than 200 years and typically consume phytoplankton and small crustaceans and fish. Rockfish reproduction is quite fascinating. Female rockfish have multiple chambers within them that have the ability to store sperm. This allows her to mate with multiple males and later on choose which male sperm she wants to use to fertilize her eggs. They also have an impressively high fecundity rate of 0.05 to 2.8 million eggs, and the larger and older the female is, the higher her fecundity. Rockfish are viviparous, and newly born larvae are only a few millimeters long. In the Life History Strategy model by Weinmiller and Rose, 1992, rockfish are placed on the periodic life strategy due to their high fecundity, old age at maturity, and low juvenile survivorship. Under this strategy, juvenile recruitment patterns are typically sporadic. When conditions are excellent, juvenile recruitment will be high, but in prolonged times where one or more limiting factors are insufficient, recruitment will drop significantly. Their periodic life strategy, combined with prolonged periods of low juvenile recruitment, makes them easy to overfish. And now back to you, Maddie, talking about MPAs.
So what exactly is an MPA? MPAs are marine protected areas that are managed by the government that include estuarine research reserves, ocean parks, marine sanctuaries, and marine wildlife refuges. MPAs can have different purposes such as protecting ecosystems or sustained fishery production. Locations that have MPAs include open ocean, intertidal zones, coastal areas, estuaries, and the Great Lakes. MPAs come with a lot of restrictions and they're different for each area. In California, there are 5 areas under management along the coast: the Northern Management Area, Mendocino Management Area, San Francisco Management Area, Central Management Area, and Southern Management Area. There is also the Cow-Cod Conservation Areas. Each management area has their own restriction for rockfish that is created by the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. For Northern Management Area and Mendocino Management Area, you are allowed to catch a combination of 10 ground fish, except black rockfish, which you're only allowed to catch 4 per person, and canary rockfish, which you're only allowed to catch 3 per person. The fishing season is closed January 1st through April 30th. In the San Francisco Management Area and Central Management Area, they have the same bag limits, except they are closed for fishing January 1st through March 31st. The Southern Management Area and Cow-Cod Conservation Areas also follow the same guidelines, but fishing is closed January 1st through February 28th. In all areas, you are not allowed to process or take cow-cod, yellow eye, rockfish, bronze-spotted rockfish. In cow-cod conservation areas, you are also not allowed to take slope rockfish. So what exactly are the pros of...
Firstly, it helps conserve biodiversity by protecting and restoring endangered species and ecosystems. The reserves are capable of bringing back life and restoring key processes like water purification and carbon capture. In addition, they play a significant role in protecting and bringing back the large adult fish that have always been the engines of reproduction and population replenishment. Animals that live longer are capable of producing more progeny. International research has shown that abundance increased dramatically within relatively short periods of time when extractive activities are prohibited. Furthermore, the more larval and adult offsprings there are, the farther afield they will travel, thus promoting fisheries and building resilience over large areas. Marine protected areas are also sites for education and research. Scientists are able to observe unharvested population of fish in the reserves, which is important as it enables the development of understanding about the natural behaviors and population dynamics of fish species. In addition, reserves enable scientists to carry out longitudinal studies on individuals, which in non-protected areas will likely be lost to harvesting during the experiment. Marine protected areas can also increase tourism and provide alternative livelihoods for communities. A study in New Zealand on the impacts of marine reserve has shown a range of tourism and recreation benefits. One example is the establishment of the Tonga Island Marine Reserve, which is next to the Abel Tasman National Park. With the building of the marine reserve, the recreational value of the area increased and in turn attracted greater numbers of visitors. Due to the greater number of visitors, there is an increase of water taxi operators and new accommodation enterprises were developed. There has also been a significant growth in the number of kayak companies in that area, from the 2 operating prior to the establishment of the marine reserve to at least 13 currently. So Kiana is going to talk about the cons of the MPA.
While MPAs might seem like the perfect way to protect certain fish species, there are a lot of problems when you take a closer look. Benefits of marine protected areas are unfortunately more often assumed than proven. According to researcher Shreya Bustapa, some of the issues when it comes to studying MPAs are the lack of clear objectives when the MPAs are first created, and a lack of sufficient data over time for a lot of the studies. Without comparable control sites, it's difficult to tell if MPAs are coming from protected areas or if the changes in the fish population stem from a difference in ocean conditions, fishing pressure, or the park's location. With most of the studies that are being done, they're also based on observational data and not experimental, so most researchers are only able to see possible correlations but not causation. Migratory species are also an issue when assigning areas of habitat to be MPAs. If the species wanders out of the boundary of the protected area, there's little that can be done for them. A similar issue arises with species that are broadcast spawners. Ocean currents can carry fertilized eggs far distances, which means that smaller MPAs might not be as effective in protecting their offspring. Larger MPAs may be more successful at this, however, MPAs that are larger require more management. Cost of surveillance and management requires coordination between organizations and agencies, creating more hoops to jump through. These difficulties raise the argument that if an MPA cannot be properly enforced, should it be enacted at all. With increased fish biomass, these areas can be more susceptible to illegal, unreported fishing activities. There's also a perception among some anglers that MPAs are enacted in only the best fishing areas. More restrictions seem like a bad deal for anglers and sparks debate on the necessity of MPAs and if they're really worth it.
Okay, so now on to John for how MPAs specifically affect rockfish.
Yeah, so now that we know a little bit more about the life history of rockfish and also how MPAs are implemented, together they really are model organisms for implementing MPAs when doing so correctly. So just like any other conservation effort, you really need to look deeply into the subject and conduct really rigorous research to fully understand the system that you're about to implement any type of action on to ensure that you get the outcome that you're looking for and also not negatively impacting any other aspects of that ecosystem. So by placing MPAs blindly, you're not really helping any of the species within that area. Until you really find out where it's ecologically important to place these areas. And that drives even further into rockfish specifically. Like we discussed earlier, rockfish have a very small home range and they generally don't go very far beyond that. So if you're able to find these areas and know the importance of them, then you're golden, and these MPAs are really going to help you out in the long run in making sure that these species have these protected areas to reproduce and grow out their long-lived lives. So with that, the long-lived nature of these fish mean that it's very challenging to conduct this research and really get a full picture of what's going on because it takes a lot of time, and that also translates to a lot of money. But what's awesome is that there are people out there willing to do this kind of research, and if we bring it back home a little bit, one of our own students in WFC 120, Haley Hudson, is actually part of a project called the CCFRP, which is a California Collaborative Fisheries Research Project. From their website, it's a project that consists of 14 different study sites, and it's a collaboration between 6 academic institutions, including our very own Bodega Marine Lab, but also really great people from the Moss Landing Research Facility and also Scripps Institution of Oceanography. And basically what this project is all about is finding out the biodiversity along the west coast of California, how these MPAs are affecting the different types of fish, and how we can better understand the system so that we know how to make a connective system that really helps all fish, not just rockfish. So getting back into rockfish, Haley did a very specific study of the rockfish at Bodega Marine Lab. So Haley looked at two very different study sites. One of them was Bodega Head and the other was Stewart's Point. They offer two very different types of habitat for these fish. What we see at Stewart's Point is rocky outcrops and great habitat for these fish, while at Bodega Head, the sandy bottom really isn't ideal for these fish. So that brings to the point of really being specific about the type of habitat for a very specific type of species. She saw that at Stewart's Point, the CPUE was a lot higher within the MPAs compared to reference sites that weren't protected, and that she didn't see very much of a difference from the MPAs and the reference sites at Bodega Head. And that could also be because of fishing pressures. So the smaller MPAs allow for fish to go in and out of them a lot easier, which results in far less protection, while having these large MPAs really helps solidify a home range for these fish, and they're able to fully utilize it without being fished by either commercial or sports fishermen. So I think through our conversation today from everyone in this room, we really see that MPAs are useful. They can provide valuable resources for fish that might otherwise be lacking of habitat, feeding grounds, or breeding areas. But if you know where you're putting these MPAs and what you should be looking for what qualifies to be a good MPA, then you'll have good results. Just sectioning off giant chunks of the ocean and calling them MPAs isn't what's going to do it. You have to understand the fish's needs, what these different habitats provide for them, and the connectivity of them. That will result in good efforts to actually saving these fish instead of just saying that you're putting MPAs everywhere. So with that, thanks for listening to our podcast about MPAs and rockfish. I hope that you guys got something out of it.